Welcome back, everyone, to the Contemporary Istanbul Foundation Dialogues program. Once again, my name is Sarp Kerem Yavuz, and I would like to kick things off by reminding everyone that we have on stage today. So the panel is titled How to Own and Exhibit Digital Art Today, and we're joined by Sureyya Wille, who is a digital art sales strategist, as well as Stefanie de Regel, who is the Director of Business Development at Sachs, Lauren Jones, Director of Business Development at Ferrophile, and Stephen Sachs, Founder and Director of Bitforms Gallery in New York.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Contemporary Istanbul Foundation, for hosting us. Today, we will discuss how to own and exhibit digital art. With me on stage, I have experts in the field, so we're in very good hands. Also, given the length of the talk allotted, I'm not going to go into an in-depth history on digital art, but just a preamble. Suffice to say that as early as the 1960s, several museums held exhibits exploring art using computers. It's around this time that several artists began exploring digital technology in multimedia art using computers, televisions, and video. The first use of the term digital art was coined in the early 1980s when computer engineers devised a paint program which was used by the pioneering digital artist Harold Cohen. And now I'm taking directly from the Tate website, but the term digital art is used to describe art that is made or presented using digital technology. So, it's pretty broad.
Brilliant.
Pretty broad. So, digital art, the point is it has a long and I think much overlooked history, if you put it in the canon of the history of art. And here we are today, where it is increasingly accessible in this contemporary moment. There are infinite ways and also more affordable ways, I think, to own digital art and present it in your home. And with that, can you tell the audience and myself, what are the advantages to collecting digital art versus traditional art? And I'm going to start with Stephen, because I feel like you have some great answers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I don't know if I would say advantages. I think it's really what someone is interested in, but if they do want to purchase media, I actually like the phrase new media art, just to disrupt the Tate's definition. Because digital is really almost everything. It's a tool that's being utilized for all things. New media is more of a way of producing, an experimental way, which of course uses art and technology. I think in today's world, I mean, the question would be different because I started my gallery 23 years ago, so this question would have been answered differently then, but today it's the accessibility is incredible. The amount of people who have a better understanding of what new media is, how to collect this type of work has grown dramatically. And this sounds trite or simple, but even the equipment that's utilized today is much more affordable, much better quality, and it lets people showcase works much easier. And it actually lets artists create work more affordably, because that's a big deal. Like back early on, it was much more challenging to even create work because the computers and screens weren't really up to a high standard.
What about you guys?
Well, I would add to that indeed, like, it depends what you want, but the dialogue that I often have with collectors is that, of course, people want something tangible, right? So they're collecting, like it's something that they can physically see, feel, buy, place in their house, and with digital it's a bit different. But of course, like the development of the hardware is increasing and the accessibility of it. But I had this interesting conversation, it was actually with a Turkish collector a year ago, and then he was like, I'm not interested in digital art. I said, okay, why not? He said, I don't really understand it. And also, I cannot hang it in my house. I said, well, actually, you can hang it everywhere you go because you can always have it with you. You could be somewhere in your summer house, in your summer home, and you can have there your art, and then you're back in your residence, and you can have it there. So it's very easy to transport. There's a very different export system. The taxation is different. So there's a lot of advantages actually to it, and I think that there's need for communication and education, and so that's why TAIEX, for example, our platform gallery is investing a lot in dinners, in panel talks, and really fairs where there's not so much digital. It's been quite challenging last year to join Contemporary Istanbul for us because we knew that there was not a lot of digital, and people were saying in Turkey people are not that interested in digital, but actually this year we see that there's a lot of interest, and so it's going quite well already after the first day for us, so we're very pleased, and yeah, the tide is changing and we're happy with that.
Lauren, what about your collectors?
Hi everyone. Is this on?
Is Lauren on?
Am I on? Yeah?
I don't know.
Can you hear Lauren?
Can you hear me, guys? Okay. Ish? Okay, I'll speak up. Well, I would say, because it hasn't been said yet, everybody collects for different reasons, and one of the reasons is as an investment, or, you know, if you have a primary reason, like art you want to live with, or being, you know, the first picker for hot new artists, maybe also you care about the potential for it to increase in value, and I think that there is not a better opportunity or a, you know, a more exciting opportunity to collect and see an increase in value because this media has been so undervalued for so long. You know, a couple of other paradigm shifts. Our next-gen collectors are younger. They're about to inherit a great amount of wealth. They're more likely to value digital media and disrupt that hierarchy of media that's always seen canvas and sculpture at the top and undervalued digital media. So it's exciting. There aren't... It's exciting because you know, it's a less saturated market, lower priced market, and more accessible for younger collectors to get into it. When I was at the Christie's Art and Tech Summit a few weeks ago, you know, there's been a lot of talk about how auction sales are down about 20 to 25%, but at the same time for 2024, prints and multiples are up 200%. So, you know, younger collectors, new collectors, digital art is just more accessible for them as well.
Mm-hmm. So, taking from the accessible pricing, we can't not talk about NFTs. So, I'm curious what their insane rise and fall did to the market, but also do you treat NFTs as distinct from the rest of new media or digital art, or are they a part of it?
Yeah. Should I go first? Well, for my gallery, because it was around way before NFTs, it was incredibly disruptive to
in a good
my
way or a bad
program.
way? In a negative way?
No, good and bad, actually. In the beginning, it was very stressful, again, because this was a completely new community that evolved, that was not really part of the traditional art world, which my gallery was part of, and we tried and succeeded. It took a long time, but to integrate this type of work into the mainstream contemporary art world. So, of course, the Beeple sale is what got the attention of the art world, because it was around $70 million. So that instantly, like, everybody paid attention. The art world clearly woke up and started to get involved. So for me, in the beginning, it was challenging because I don't think the audience really was looking at this work so much as art. It was a financial asset. It was a way to legitimize crypto, which was clever. It was smart, but I think a lot of it was not really art. And the big thing, which maybe we'll get into, was presentation was completely discarded, which is like a huge part of experiencing art.
Art, yeah.
But on the positive side, I would say the market, even if it was a small percentage, it did grow. And a small percentage in the art world, even if it's 4 or 5% of that many people, is a big deal. So that that was very interesting. And now, of course, we're in a different moment where the market has somewhat crashed. So I think there's more thoughtful, more interesting projects being made now than when it actually was at the top and the height. Yeah.
Lauren, you're not seeing. Are you seeing with your collectors? Are they seeking out NFTs, or what's the appetite?
Well, I work with different collectors. I worked at a traditional gallery when I was in grad school. I have a lot of contacts that are traditional collectors, some of whom have collected from feral file because of the ease of our using our app. I worked for worked for another platform where I had to onboard people to use MetaMask, and that was impossible. I did not have success with it.
I'm always interested in talking to traditional art collectors because, to your question earlier about how do you think of this media, I always start with the art. We have a wonderful artist who had a solo show on Feral File who's also shown at Bitforms recently, Araya Harvey, and her work, she is a pioneer of digital sculpture, 3D modeling, and her practice is this work is very much within the tradition of sculpture. So I don't think of it as an NFT. The NFT isn't the media, and in most cases, it's just a certificate of authenticity. And so I will say that recently the Art News Top 200 Collector list came out, and I did outreach to a bunch of them. I'm always thoughtful about who I reach out to, but I especially tried to get in touch with collectors of contemporary art, especially when they were investors in technology or worked in technology. And out of about 40, I used all my in-mail credits on LinkedIn for this, and out of about 40 people that I reached out to, I got 5 people to get back to me, and I'm meeting with a couple of them and sending presentations.
Right.
So I feel that after the bubble and then the crash and all of the, the NFT market and the crypto market have been so closely linked, and the negativity of FTX, that the dust has sort of settled. A lot of banks are now offering ETFs for the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is up, so that's all good. So I feel like it feels like after the dust has settled,
right,
people are coming back and saying, what's happening over here? This is interesting. And so it feels like actually a time of optimism and getting a little bit more interest.
And rebuilding more thoughtfully, as you said.
Yes.
Taking for what you were saying as well, I'm curious about the overlap or lack of art collectors. Who are they? Who are the people buying digital art versus traditional art? Or are they a completely different, distinct group of aficionados, or are they kind of one and the same? Are there trends that you see from traditional art collecting that's similar to digital art collecting? Stefanie.
So at TIEX, we actually onboard, I would say, a lot of traditional art collectors into digital art, but we don't like even to make that distinction, right? It's contemporary art.
Right.
And it's just a different way of collecting it, receiving it, having it at home. So but we really, for example, who are they? They sometimes are traditional art collectors. We also have people that only collect NFTs also come to us, of course, because at the end of the day, we use NFTs. It's an option that the collector has, because NFT is a word that scares a lot of people away, but essentially it's a vehicle, right? It's a smart contract, and it's the most contemporary, well thought through way to actually possess a digital piece of art. But if you're not familiar with how to create a wallet and all these steps that Lauren has been explaining, then of course it can scare people away. So that's also, I think, a very important mission for galleries, platforms, art advisors, to guide collectors through that journey, which is actually not that complicated. And once you get a hold of it, you'll find it very enjoyable, and you'll want to buy and collect more digital art. So I would say they're very varied. I see a lot of people from the tech industry, right, tech entrepreneurs. I see traditional collectors. We had an event in Geneva 3 weeks ago, and we had a big Swiss collector. I think he was 75 years old. He came to me and he said, I love this work, a generative art piece by our artist Maltic. And he was mesmerized, and he was like, how can I collect this? And it's these kind of things that we at TIEX, I think, also live for, because it shows that you just have to create that dialogue. You just have to get in the collectors, get in the people that are interested in the right format, in the right space, with the right arts and the right artists, and magic will happen. I've seen that. I don't know.
Stephen, do you, since the gallery's been around for 20 years,
23.
23 years, in my mind, when I think of a traditional art collector, it's someone who they have to have it, and they keep buying more, and they're running out of wall space, and half their collection's in storage. Do you see a similar enthusiasm and zeal in the digital art collector? New media art collector?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely, yeah. I think, but it's also what was interesting over time is, and there's all types of media art. If you come to my stand, you could see it's not always moving image, it's not always plugged in. I'm a big supporter of artists utilizing new technologies, but actually creating very traditional formats. Not just because the artist is doing it, I think it's nice to have that diversity in the program and to offer collectors different ways of participating in this new type of work. But probably, one of the most interesting things over the years, which kind of relates to all of us on the panel, is that having a screen in your home devoted to art was a very, very new concept when I started.
Right.
And collectors, once they understand that conceptually, it's incredible because I have very wealthy collectors and their apartments can only be so big, right? And a lot of them are very, upset about putting works in storage and not having to live with it. So works that are screen-based, in many cases, you can have 10, 20, 30 pieces on a single screen and be your own curator of that work. And that is a big moment for these collectors. Once they figure that out, they don't have to deal with moving work. They have to just basically update.
Reinstalling.
And they buy the hardware, like the screen and then the computer, etc. So that, I would say, has been a really interesting shift that I saw. And once the collector gets it, they continue to come back and are excited about new work.
Yeah. So, in that vein, for the rest of us who might not yet own a piece, what do you recommend to your collectors in terms of how to install the work? How do you live with a digital art collection and enjoy the works? Do you have screens up all over your house? Do you carry around your phone? Like, how do you do it? What do you recommend?
I could answer this, but I'll be a gentleman.
No, you want to answer this? Sure.
I like to defer to the artist's intent, and I, communicate that to collectors. Most of them tend to honor it, but not everybody is going to go out and get new hardware or upgrade hardware. The fact that most people now have a digital canvas in their home, in a television, a smart TV, is also a game changer. Feral Files app that I mentioned earlier, that's a digital wallet, also has the ability to display work on that smart TV. And so I think it's not long before people look back and are like, gosh, I can't believe we just had these black boxes, these black culture boxes that, that are now always illuminated. Our kids are going to be like, what, you didn't have art on your screen? And there's a little test case with the Samsung frame and the popularity of the art store, but those are old masters' works. Those are high-res photographs of old masters' works, and to me, analogous to posters. And if you are aware of a theorist, a philosopher, Walter Benjamin, he talked about the aura of art and the way that it's lost when it's mechanically reproduced. But digital art, file-based art, is digitally native. And so the ability to live with that kind of work is very special. The ability to change it over. With our app, you can make playlists and time them, so you could have a dinner party and go through, however many artworks you want. In terms of the question, the original question was, how do you
recommend
art?
your collectors?
Oh, okay.
How to live with it? How to present it?
I think that starting with the TV, with the display, is a great way to go. I think, you know, even if you love really conceptual art, conceptual work, I think most collectors take into account the aesthetics of what they're, you know, they want something that looks aesthetically nice in their interior. I tend to choose the work that I live with based on that. And I think that, yeah, no, not a bunch of screens, but I'll let Stephen speak to the fact that there are several final, you know, the medium is not always actually digital. But for me, I think that the TV is a great, the television, the smart TV is a great starting point to start living with digital art, file-based art.
I just quickly want to add to that, I see that there's also a psychological element to it, because of course the TV, there's a habit, right? It's the power of habit, is that the TV for most people is used as a medium for watching like TV, like the news, like movies, like entertainment, right? And so to all of a sudden switch to having the habit of using it as a canvas, as we very eloquently say, yeah, it requires some time. But fortunately, also for the people that don't really see TV as a canvas, there are really nice frame solutions, like digital frames. And I was during Art Basel in Paris, there was a collector that opened up her house, Hélène Guinban, and she has a beautiful art collection, contemporary art collection. And then I spotted digital artwork, and had a beautiful frame. It was like 2-3 meters high, and so that was in a frame, so it didn't look like a TV. And I think that that's also something that plays. So I'll let Stephen add to that.
Thank you. I think what I tell collectors, I can't force this situation, but I usually try to tell them to have a devoted screen to art, because it changes everything once that destination is about art versus you flipping
From
to the
like
football
the
game
news
or
to,
the one very ridiculously simple way to do that is to make the screen vertical, where they'd be having some trouble watching TV. Not all works, of course, are in that portrait landscape, but actually a lot are. And in my home, for example, I have one landscape, one portrait. They're only devoted to art. And once, again, they experience this and they understand the ease of doing it, they won't want to watch television. They'll leave that to a different space. So, yeah, I think those are things that are very important. And once they get that connection to the screen as an art experience, it makes a big difference.
Maybe naive, but as a parent, all we're told right now is the dangers of screen time. And I would worry to have screens on at all time, because when I think of traditional physical art, you can't turn a painting off, obviously. It's always on your wall. How do these works that live on a screen differ from the screen time that's so dangerous that we're being told to watch out for?
Well, I also have kids, and I understand that, but it's art. Like it's the getting back to this devoted system. If you have art on your wall, it doesn't matter if it's moving or not moving. It's art, and it will enrich the lives of the kids versus the opposite. Of course, yeah. If it's used for dual purpose and they could do social media and whatever, it could be, a concern. But if it is truly meant to be art and they're taught that it is art, then. Yeah, I mean, the next generation is going to know this as, an art form much more so than the previous. So I think it's okay.
Stephanie, we were talking about this.
I would even add to that sometimes it can go further than that, not only enriched by the beauty of the art, but we have an artist, Krista Kim, and actually she's very focused on this issue at hand, which is that screens do require a lot of energy from us. They always want to sell us something, market something. So you're constantly being bombarded by these messages, right? Even when you watch a movie, like the branding in the 90s used to be more obvious, but still, we're always being influenced by the screens. Well, Krista Kim, she actually uses the screen as a medium where you can get a sort of enlightenment, so a spiritual enlightenment, because she uses this very interesting array of colors, sounds, movements and if you are interested, we have it at the booth, actually, her beautiful works, where you put on the headphone, you look at the work, and you're feeling this ooze of relaxation. So she managed to kind of combine all these elements that bring you actually a more peaceful feeling, which is quite surprising, right? Because screens normally, and when you look at a TV that's showing a program and you look at her work, it's a completely different universe. So it's very powerful once you start adding images to sound and motion. It can create completely different feelings that a still painting cannot convey. So it's something to reflect on. And yeah, Lauren, what do you think?
I think you guys did a great job on that. And I think you covered it, yeah.
I like that idea of actually turning a screen, well, making it not a weapon and using it as a way to disconnect. Because right now, all we hear is how terrible and dangerous it is. But seeing your piece, the Krista Kim piece, it's true. You can really, it's meditative and it's calming. And you'd want that in your environment. What, in your collective experiences, what can you recommend new or seasoned art collectors in this space? What should they be aware of? What are sort of your takeaways? Because I can think of questions for someone buying a painting that they should be aware of. Restoration, don't expose it to light. What are the things they should be aware of when they purchase a piece?
So as far as, because I specialize in file-based art, tokenized file-based art, I would say when I onboard new traditional collectors, we go through and do a whole session on wallet security, responsible practices. I give them a PDF that has everything in writing. Some of them actually have custodial service that manages their wallet to take some of the anxiety out of it, in the same way that some people have storage for their physical art collection. As far as digital conservation goes, that's a whole. I'm actually the least tech savvy person on our team, so I'll let Steven speak to this. But my comment would be more on, if you're collecting file-based art, tokenized file-based art, you don't want to be clicking on links. You want to make sure that you have gone through the little educational process and practiced a little bit with a digital wallet. It's really not hard. It can be intimidating, but it's not hard. Believe it or not, I think that in the coming years, with the rise of AI, I think that everyone will have digital wallets. The UI will just be better. It'll be the way that we prove our identity, prove our humanness, and I think everyone's going to collectively become more comfortable with it. But for now, it's just about best practices around security, is what I would say.
I would advise to remove judgment, to embrace the digital art in a way to look at it and just let it come to you for the art. Because what we're trying to, and successfully doing more and more, is that we're conveying art. So I would say talk, dialogues, be curious, culturally curious, because there's a lot to explore there, and be certain that you have really powerful players in the digital art world. Because funny enough, I don't think it has been clearly stated, we're three very different players in the digital. We do different things actually, because Feral File is not a gallery, right? It's really a platform and does tokenized art. So it has a really great system, as you said, with your new app. So it's all digital. We are also doing only digital art, but we're acting like a gallery, participating in art fairs, hosting a lot of dinners like typically galleries would do, but only digital art. And then Steven has, as you said, new media art, but it's created digitally, but it has a physical form. So we're doing three different things, and I'm grateful to be in the digital art world because we're also all helping each other, right? We're all I think we're more friendly than maybe the galleries in the contemporary physical art world, because I don't treat any other gallery or platform like, oh, they did more sales. When they do sales, I'm actually happy. I really am. And we're sitting here with a pioneer. I want to do a shout out to Stephen Sachs, because he's been doing this for 23 years, when, this was completely not being discussed as openly by all the fairs, not being embraced, and he was doing it, and he was selling art, so I'm very actually happy that we have him here today. So, and now I'm going to get the mic to Stephen.
Very kind, thank you.
So what are we watching out for a new, young, unseasoned collector in the field?
It really depends on what they're purchasing. If it's a pure file-based work, it's a lot easier because there's not a lot of concerns for preservation and migration. This is like a whole other panel discussion, but like even if you come to my stand, there's a few pieces that are merging the moving image with a physical sculpture. So it's not the best selling strategy, but I do have to tell the collectors that their pieces will die. And
that's interesting.
Hard beginning,
hard start.
Not so easy.
Yeah.
But also, as Stephanie was saying, the experience you're getting from that artwork cannot be attained without that, potential failure, and it's something that we feel very strongly about communicating. I think collectors need to be very aware of that and ask, because a lot of, I'm an expert because I've been doing it for 23 years, but younger galleries, they just hand off the work and they say, oh, take off, hope it goes well. Except Tayax, of course. But it's fascinating to see how different artists are dealing with migrating their work to the next gen. Like an artist that's in my show in New York, Rafael Lozano-Hemmer, he has a whole dedicated team at his studio devoted to legacy work. So when we get a call or they get a call and say, oh, my piece is no longer working, there's actually a process that is involved with, because some artists are actually, they want it to stay consistent with the original form and concept. Others are actually embracing
the change.
Something going from HD to 4K is like, wow, that's actually improving my art, so it's okay to do that. So each artist has their own way of dealing with it, but the point being, not as much with pure file work, because that can be migrated a little easier, but when there's this hybrid model of physical and digital, you do need to be aware of what will happen in the future.
Parts of it may.
But the great news is, unlike it was when I started, 5-year-olds are coding. So it's like, back when I was starting, it was much more of a concern about migrating and keeping the work running and up to date.
That's fascinating. Thank you. Thank you. That's fascinating. I like starting a sales pitch with "this piece will die," so enjoy it while you can. On that note, I urge you all to go enjoy the digital art, because it's very hard to speak of it abstractly. You really have to experience it. Bitforms is in Hall B, right down here, and Tayax is in Hall A. As you walk in, it's the first thing you see. Do we have any questions from the audience before we wrap up? Yes.
I have a couple of questions actually. The first thing is you always talk about the homes, but we have a couple of museum directors in the house now. So you haven't mentioned the museums. The museums are also very ignorant to digital art and new media, basically. So what would you say about that? The second question is, the maintenance is a real big problem. Even here with the mics, you have issues and you expect people go home and deal with the technology. And for example, if you buy a car, the car provides you services. You take the car to the service every once in a while. Yeah, what would you say? What are you promising about the maintenance when you sell an artwork? A question to Steve. the technology is changing so rapidly. There are issues about the changing technologies. For example, Google is no longer supporting Flash. This means that all the Flash art, all the art made with Flash, what is going to happen about this?
Uh-oh.
And last question.
That's 4 questions, okay.
Last question is the storage space. Digital storage space. Yeah,
Wait, hold on. Let me
Yeah.
go, let's go to the
Thank you.
first question, because that's a lot of questions.
We must admire
First of all, the museum, you have in Istanbul probably the most prominent museum or kind of hybrid museum, because they're also an office, but Borasan is probably one of the best collectors of media art in the world, and they're in Istanbul. So I would say you are right, a majority of museums are still trying to catch up. One of our artists, also Turkish, Rafik Anadal, made a huge splash around a year ago at MoMA, and really had an impact, I think, on media art in general, but also how other museums may take advantage of that. He had a massive piece in their lobby, and it was one of the more successful art experiences MoMA has ever seen, actually. And so I would say museums are getting much more involved. They see it as a very good way to improve visitorship. Social media is much higher with media art.
They've built out the curators too, their departments.
Yeah, totally. There's many more curators, and also getting back to conservation, a lot of them now have proper conservationists on site, which they didn't have many years ago. I may have forgotten the other 3 questions.
Maintenance. What do you promise your collectors?
Well, as I said, with maintenance, well, one, it depends. It's all different, but many artists, it really depends on the work. Sometimes we actually do offer, like if you buy a physical work that has motors and moving parts, we will manage any problems that happen in the first year. If they don't, like their kid doesn't break it or something. Or the cat, of course, is always an issue. But beyond that, again, there's a dialogue. We help them as best we can. So all of these things, we're at a very different time where it's not so challenging to do that. And what were the other questions?
Storage space?
Oh, I don't, does anyone want to into storage? I'm taking too much mic time.
Museums.
Just on the museum, it was actually a feral file collaboration with MoMA
that's right.
that released Rafik Anadal's work. It was very exciting. Our co-founder, Casey Reese, who is a pioneer of software art, was actually Rafik's mentor at UCLA. And so it was a very, it was the first of its kind partnership. Since then, MoMA actually curated our Sound Machines exhibition earlier this spring. It was all sound art. And so I would say that with NFTs, it's interesting. I actually feel that there is interest from institutions who recognize that it's a way to connect with a younger and more global audience. Whether it's through engagement like the MoMA postcard project, with which Feral File also collaborated on, or if it's a commission or exhibition acquisitions. Feral File has had 23 works acquired by institutions so far. I'm optimistic that number will go up soon. And so there has been, I think, as a way to, all museums have to be thinking about their digital strategy right now.
I think they'd be foolish not to.
Oh gosh, and galleries too. I mean, I was speaking with John Gerard recently, who's a pioneer of simulation art. He has a ongoing exhibition. It's a year-long public artwork on the internet that is available to collect in pieces, and he's represented globally by Pace, which is one of the largest 4 galleries in the world. And he said something about Feral File that was, it was something where I was kind of like, John, we're a startup and Pace is Pace. And I asked him, I said, do you think that in 5 years Pace will look more like Pace looks now, or Pace will look more like Feral File? And he looked like he was going to consider it, and then I said, remember the app. And he said, no question, PACE is going to go more towards where a feral file is, because you have to be thinking about your digital strategy, digital engagement, and make channels and inroads.
I mean, yeah, not only museums, but even when you look at the Venice Biennale, there were so many, they're not part of the collateral program yet, but there are so many initiatives with digital art when you go to Venice. This year, TAIEX also took over La Scoletta, like a whole building where we exhibited digital art. We work with curators. We pay a lot of attention to our artists are actually in collections like the collection of the LACMA Museum, Louis Vuitton Foundation. So we didn't talk about this today because our title is How to Own and Exhibit Digital Art, and we really wanted to put a focus on collectors.
On the home,
yes.
yeah.
But thank you very much for that question, because it's a very important one and an interesting one. So.
Sarp, do we have any more time?
Thank you for all these informations. I appreciate it. My question is, I think digital art is like photography, has editions, right? And when you look at the market, what is the, how many editions are generally accepted in the market?
That's actually not true. Many digital works are unique. In fact, that's...
Unique?
Yeah. That's probably what was very desirable for the NFT community, is to have one-of-a-kind pieces that were connected to certifications on the blockchain. But again, of course, you can do editions, so of course it depends on the artist, but unique, I think, became more popular than editions well, certainly with the NFT marketplace.
But it had a huge success. But it had a huge success, and of course there were many collections where you have like 10,000 was actually the standard amount for PFP collections, right? With the Bored Apes and the CryptoPunks, and that's maybe what you may refer to, but that's just a part of it. That's exactly when the boom happened with all like the craze of the community aspect, right? Because we were talking about this before and maybe didn't highlight it enough, is that with the NFTs what happened is that, okay, it was a financial instrument, but it was a community. You would buy a picture, right? A profile picture, that's where PFP comes from, and you would have that and put it up, and you would be like, I'm part of the penguin community or from this community, and maybe it seems a bit strange, but people were really living with that and engaging with that, and so, but that's just a part of it. So what we're talking about, I think also today, is more when you have a unique edition,
works.
right? And it's more, that's why it's so recognizable for traditional collectors, because you have that part as well. So you're right, on some parts it might resemble to photography because there's many editions, but for example, Stephen with Bitforms and TAIEX as well, I think Feral File has more editions, no? You'll tell that more better than me, but
It's usually unique within a series.
unique within a series, yeah. So it depends.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
More questions?
Final question. Make it good.
Digital art is so hot right now.
So I'm of Stephen's generation, and we grew up in New York City in the 80s and 90s with the first computers and architecture and all that stuff. And we would always go to these exhibitions, the Bill Viola exhibitions, and you would see all these new media and things like this. I didn't really have a chance to collect any of that stuff until the NFT times, and then I bought a whole bunch of it. So I have a significant NFT collection, and I actually, as a designer, I sold a bunch of NFTs. And the community was quite nice. It was the Tezos community. It was a different platform. It was kind of ecologically minded. It was like a great moment, but then, it just seems like it was like a dream, because it's been like 2 years since I opened up my wallet. I rarely see any of these things that I bought and made. I know they're existing there, and I spent a significant amount of money and time on it. I'm wondering what you can say after that period to kind of, obviously everybody has their interests, but there was a certain creativity that happened. Are you seeing that still? That community was very, very vibrant. So my question to you is, what is going to motivate digital communities and digital art in the coming few years? What do you think could be another exciting moment? Because it seems kind of depressing.
It's a great question.
Again, I didn't, my gallery was never truly devoted to NFTs, so I don't really relate to that concern. It's the opposite for me. I actually look at it very positively, because it did develop a much larger interest in this type of work. And we worked very hard as a gallery, again, who's been doing it a long time, to educate a lot of these new folks who didn't know this work existed prior to NFTs. So, and as I mentioned earlier, there are some really amazing, thoughtful projects coming out that we've participated in. Everyone on the panel has participated in. So, of course, it was out of control. It was so hyped up, it had to come down. So I could see someone who got in early, like yourself, feeling that. But from our perspective, I think that filtering process has enhanced and is helping the current situation.
So last September, it was September 9th, I know this because I had a sale that opened that day. Rolling Stone and a bunch of other outlets reported that 95% of NFTs are worthless. And it's not good for my sale. They were right, it's true. There has been so little value overall created. It was so speculative. A lot of the value that was created that then, exited was because of hype and social media. As a collector early, I'm curious how you navigated and found the work that you collected, because there is not a lot of curating, writing, even for a lot of the artists, the best way to get a sense for their oeuvre, like the work that they've released, is across different social media channels, because a lot of them don't actually maintain websites in some cases. Now, I like to say that through that period, feral file artworks are still outperforming the Art Price 100 index. So there has been value created, and there are a lot of digital art lovers. Going back to the question about editions, I think she stepped out also, and blockchain and community is something very interesting. When you have a higher edition size and the blockchain-based community, I think that is very interesting to think about applied to conceptual art. The John Gerard exhibition that I mentioned is actually a little robot that's making a new generative ice crystalline formation every hour for a whole year. So that's 8,760 artworks throughout the year. That's a very large edition. That's a very large series, but it's basically, the value of it is the same as his editions that he sells at Pace, but in this case, you can be part of that. It's accessible at $100 per work, and 25% of that goes to plant trees to actually effectuate global cooling. So, when you think about the ability to take conceptual art a step further, where it doesn't just contest or probe or examine, but actually, have the ability to become part of a community that decides this is important and let's take action, that's where I think it can get pretty cool and exciting.
Thank you. Sarp says it's over. Thank you all for attending. Please go visit the art. Bitforms is in Hall B, TAIX in Hall A as you walk in. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Sarp. Thank you so much for inviting us to this panel. Thank you.